I'm 31. I know exactly how old I am because my birthday is March 14th and my mom has missed it 4 times in a row now. Not by accident, not because she was sick, but because my sister's dance recitals, my sister's college visits, my sister's boyfriend drama always seem to land right on top of it. I stopped mentioning my birthday around year 2. It was easier than watching her remember and still choose something else. So I should have seen the wedding thing coming. I really should have. My sister Nora got engaged in October to a guy named Brandon who I had met exactly twice. Once at Thanksgiving, where he spent 40 minutes telling my dad about his fantasy football lineup, and once at a 4th of July barbecue where he asked me if I was the one who does like accounting stuff. I do not do like accounting stuff. I'm a licensed CPA. I have been for 6 years. But I smiled and said yes, basically, and went to get another beer. When Nora called to tell me about the engagement, she was crying happy tears before she even finished the sentence. I was genuinely happy for her. I told her so. I asked her every question I could think of: how he proposed, where they were, what the ring looked like. She sent me 47 photos within the hour. I saved all of them. My mom called me 20 minutes after that. I thought she was calling to share the moment, to say something like, "Can you believe it? Our girl is getting married." Remember when she used to make us pretend to be the guests at her Barbie weddings in the living room? I was ready for that call. I wanted that call. Instead, she said, "Nora is going to need a lot of support over the next year. I know you're busy with work, but I really hope you'll show up for her. This is the most important time of her life." I held the phone away from my face for a second. Just a second. "Of course," I said. "I'm her sister." "Good," she said. And then she told me they were thinking June and hung up. I want to be clear about something before I keep going. My family is not poor. My parents own a catering company. They've had it for almost 20 years. It started as my mom's side business when Nora and I were little, and my dad joined full-time when his construction job dried up in 2009. I grew up watching them build it. I helped in high school, did deliveries, set up tables, broke down rentals at midnight after events. When I was in college, I helped them transition their booking system from a paper binder to actual software. When I passed my CPA exam, the first client I took on outside my firm was them. I did their taxes for 4 years at cost, sometimes below cost, because they were family. The business is not tiny. They clear somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000 in revenue most years, depending on event season. Dollars in revenue most years, depending on event season. I know this because I have seen the numbers. What I did not know until much later is what was actually happening inside those numbers. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The wedding was set for June 14th, 11 months away. Nora asked me to be a bridesmaid in November, over brunch, in a little car tucked under my mimosa glass. I cried a little, real tears. She cried too. We hugged for a long time in the middle of the restaurant, and the table next to us started clapping, which made us both laugh. I said yes before she even finished asking. The next several months were a blur of spreadsheets and venue tours and group chats I was always slightly behind on. I went to 4 dress fittings. I helped Nora research photographers for 3 weeks. I drove her to a cake tasting on a Tuesday because Brandon had a work thing. I paid my bridesmaid dress deposit, my alterations deposit, my share of the bridal shower, half of a hotel room for the bachelorette weekend in Nashville that I could only attend for one of the 2 nights because I had a client deadline. I did not complain about any of this. I did not keep a running total in my head, even though my brain is literally trained to keep running totals. My mom and I talked occasionally during this time. Functional conversations. What time is the shower? Did Nora decide on the rehearsal dinner venue? Should we do a morning of breakfast at the house? She was warm enough in those calls, present enough. I told myself things were fine. That we had maybe just grown apart a little, the way families do, and that the wedding would bring us back together. I believed that right up until 2 weeks before the ceremony, when I got the seating chart. Nora sent it to the whole wedding party at once, a big PDF with everyone's names arranged across round tables with little numbers. I opened it at my desk between client calls and scrolled through it looking for my name. I found it on page 3, table 14. I stared at it for probably 30 seconds before I clicked away and went back to my spreadsheet. I thought I had misread it. I finished my call, came back, opened the PDF again. Table 14, tucked near the back corner of the reception hall, between the exit to the catering kitchen and the table assigned to Brandon's co-workers from his old job, people neither Nora nor I had ever met. My name, light there between two people I had never heard of, while the wedding party head table sat at the front of the room. 6 spots. Nora, Brandon, 4 other bridesmaids. Not me. I called Nora. She didn't pick up. I texted her, "Hey, just saw the seating chart. Quick question, was I moved off the head table?" She called me back 4 hours later. She sounded tired. She said, "Mom thought it would be better if you sat with some of the guests who might not know a lot of people. You're good at making people feel comfortable, and those are some of Brandon's coworkers that we really want to impress." I said, "I'm in the wedding party." She said, "I know. And you will still be in all the photos and walking down the aisle and everything. It's just the dinner seating." "It's just the dinner seating," I repeated. "Don't make this a thing," she said, not unkindly, just tired. Like this was a conversation she had already had once today and didn't want to have again. I said, "Okay." I said I understood. I said I would see her at the rehearsal. I hung up and sat in my car in my apartment parking lot for about 15 minutes. Not crying, just sitting. My mom thought it would be better. My mom, who had rearranged my place in my own sister's wedding without mentioning it to me, without asking, without a conversation, who had decided that I was useful, good at making people feel comfortable, but not important enough to sit at the front of the room. I drove home. I made dinner. I went to bed. The next morning, a Friday, I went into the office early. Not because I had to, because I needed something to do with my hands. I made coffee, pulled up my files, opened a new tab, and then, almost without deciding to, I typed the name of my parents' catering company into the search bar and started looking at their public business registration records. I don't know what I was looking for. I think I just needed to feel like I understood something, like I had some ground under my feet. What I found was a name I didn't recognize. The registered agent for my parents' business had been updated 8 months ago. The new name was my sister's, Nora, listed as the managing partner. No notice to me, no conversation. The business my parents had built, the one I had helped file taxes for, the one I had helped transition to modern bookkeeping software. Restructured quietly with my sister's name at the top. I closed the tab, opened it again, read it again. Then I pulled up the tax returns I had filed for them before they switched to a new accountant 2 years ago. They told me they found someone closer to their neighborhood, which I understood, no hard feelings. I still had the old records because I keep everything. It is both my profession and my personality. I started going through them carefully, not with suspicion at first, just with attention. It's what I do. I look at numbers until I understand what they're telling me. By noon, I understood. The discrepancies were not small. Over the 4 years I had their account, I had taken their records at face value. I had filed what they gave me. What I was looking at now, cross-referencing against some public vendor records and the registration filings, suggested that the income I had been given to file was consistently lower than what the business was likely generating, not by little, by a pattern, a deliberate, structured pattern. I am a CPA. I know what underreported income looks like. I know the difference between a bad year and a decision. I sat with this for a week. I did not call my mom. I did not mention it to Nora. I went to the rehearsal dinner on a Thursday evening, stood in a row with the other bridesmaids, smiled for photos, ate the salmon, hugged my sister, told her she was going to be beautiful tomorrow. My mom hugged me goodnight and said, "You look tired. Get some sleep." "I will," I said. "Congratulations on Nora." She smiled and turned back to a conversation she was having with Brandon's mother. The wedding was beautiful. Nora was radiant. I meant it when I cried watching her walk down the aisle. I meant every bit of it. I held a bouquet during the vows and kept my face very still and thought about how much I loved her and how little any of this was her fault, not really. At the reception, I went to table 14. I introduced myself to the strangers around me. I was apparently very good at making people feel comfortable. Brandon's old coworker, a guy named Tim, told me 3 times that the venue was really something. I agreed all 3 times. I drank 2 glasses of wine. I watched my family at the front of the room. My mom, my dad, Nora, Brandon, everyone in their right places. And I felt something settle in my chest. Not grief, exactly, more like clarity. I gave my sister a card with a check inside that I will not disclose the amount of here, except to say it was meaningful. I hugged her for a long time at the end of the night. She smelled like her perfume and hairspray and champagne. I love you, I told her. I love you too, she said. Thank you for being here. I smiled. I meant it. Then I went home, changed out of my dress, and sat down at my kitchen table with a glass of water and my laptop. What I did next took me approximately 3 weeks. I was careful. I am always careful. I retained a CPA colleague I trust, someone outside my firm, to do a second set of eyes. I documented everything in a format that was clear and specific and sourced. I did not guess. I did not extrapolate. I only included what the records actually showed. The picture that emerged was not ambiguous. Income from events had been systematically underreported for at least 5 years, possibly longer. The restructuring that placed Nora as managing partner appeared time to shift liability. There were vendor payments that didn't correspond to any events I could verify. It was not a simple mistake. Mistakes don't have a pattern. I want to explain something here because I know what the easy interpretation is. People hear a story like this and they assume the person in my position waited until they were personally hurt to act, that I only cared about the fraud because of a seating chart, that I was weaponizing the IRS as revenge for a social slight. I've thought about this a lot. I won't pretend the wedding didn't open my eyes. It did. But what I did with what I saw had nothing to do with where I sat at dinner. What I found in those records was real. It had been real before I knew about it. The harm was not to me personally. It was to the government, to the tax system, to every person who pays what they owe. I have spent my entire career helping people do that correctly. I cannot look at deliberate fraud and decide it is not my problem because the people doing it are related to me. I called an attorney. I asked what my options were. I learned about the IRS whistleblower program. Most people don't know this exists, but the IRS has a formal process for third-party reports of significant tax non-compliance, and in cases over a certain threshold, the reporting party may receive a portion of the collected proceeds. I did not do this for the money. I want to be clear about that. But I did do it correctly because doing things correctly is the only way I know how to operate. I submitted a formal report. I included everything, the documentation, the analysis, the supporting records. I sent it certified mail on a Tuesday morning before work. I did not tell my parents. I did not tell Nora. I went to my office, made coffee, sat down at my desk, and answered emails. 3 days later, my mom called. Not about the report, she didn't know yet. She called to tell me that Nora and Brandon's honeymoon photos were up on Instagram and had I seen them, they looked so happy. Wasn't it wonderful? I said yes, it was wonderful. I asked about the photos. I listened to her describe the beach in Greece for several minutes. When she finished, she said, "You seemed a little off at the wedding. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. I was just tired. She said she hoped I wasn't coming down with something. She said goodbye. She did not ask how I was doing, not really. She said I seemed off, and then answered her own question. I hung up and went back to work. The next several months were very quiet on my end. I went to work. I saw friends. I started going to the farmers market on Saturday mornings, which I had been meaning to do for 2 years. I learned to make a passable shakshuka. I read 4 books I'd had on my nightstand since January. I did not reach out to my parents beyond the minimum: holidays, logistics, a birthday call in March where my mom talked mostly about a remodeling project they were doing on the kitchen. I was polite. I was fine. I did not feel the need to perform more than I had. I don't know exactly when they found out. I know it was a summer month because I remember I had my windows open when my dad called and I could hear the neighbor's sprinklers running. He didn't say hello. He said my name. Just my name. And the way he said it told me everything. I said, "Hi, Dad." He said, "Do you want to explain to me what you did?" I said, "I reported income that wasn't being reported." "I think you know what I'm referring to." A long silence. "You had no right," he said. "I had every right," I said. "I'm a CPA. I have an ethical obligation. And beyond that, what was happening was wrong. You know it was wrong." He didn't say it wasn't wrong. He just said, "You could have come to us. You could have talked to us first. Would you have stopped?" I asked. He didn't answer that. I told him I was sorry that it came to this. I told him I genuinely meant that. I told him I loved him and I hoped they would get through it and that they should find a very good accountant and a very good attorney and follow every instruction those people gave them. He hung up. My mom texted me that evening. It was 3 lines. It said I had betrayed my family. It said she didn't know who I was anymore. It said not to contact Nora. I read it twice. I put my phone face down on the counter. I finished making dinner, the shakshuka actually, which came out pretty well that time. I ate at my kitchen table and watched the light change through the window. I cried a little after, not a lot. Just enough to acknowledge that this was real and it hurt, and I was still the same person I had always been, even inside the hurt. I have not spoken to my parents since. It's been several months now. Nora reached out once, a short text that said she didn't understand what happened and she needed space. I texted back that I understood, that I loved her, and that I would always pick up if she called. She has not called yet. I am not going anywhere. The investigation is ongoing. I'm told these things take time, which I understand. I am patient. What I think about sometimes, when I'm walking to the farmer's market or making coffee in the morning, is that seating chart. Table 14. The back corner, near the kitchen exit, between strangers. My mother's solution for a daughter she found usable but not central. I wonder if she ever thought about what she was signaling. Probably not. It's hard to worry about the feelings of someone you've already decided is peripheral. What she didn't consider is that peripheral people see everything. We're not distracted by being the center of the room. We're watching. We notice the patterns. We have time to think. I sat at table 14 and I made nice conversation and I was good at it, just like she said I would be. And then I went home and I did what I know how to do. I don't think of it as revenge. Revenge implies I wanted to hurt them. What I wanted was to not carry something that didn't belong to me, the weight of their choices, their decisions, their math. I put it down. The relief is quieter than I expected. Not triumphant. Just steady. Like setting down a bag you've been carrying so long you forgot you were holding it, and then realizing your shoulders feel different. Lighter. More like yours. I walk to the market every Saturday. I buy whatever looks good. I cook dinner at my own table in my own kitchen, and I eat it while the light comes through the window, and I don't wait for anyone to call. I'm 31. I know exactly how old I am. And for the first time in a long time, I know exactly who I am too. I've thought a lot about what it means to do the right thing when the right thing costs you everything you thought was permanent. My family felt permanent. The Sunday dinners, the group texts, my mom's voice on the phone telling me Nora's honeymoon photos were beautiful. All of it felt like something solid, something that would hold. I think I believed that for a long time, even when the evidence was suggesting otherwise. That's not naivety, exactly. It's more like loyalty running ahead of reality. What I know now is that every choice has a shape. My parents made choices. Small ones at first, probably. The kind that feel easy to justify. A little underreported here, a restructured filing there. And then those choices grew a structure around them, and the structure needed protecting. And protecting it meant keeping certain people close and certain people useful but peripheral. I was useful. I was good at making people comfortable. I just wasn't someone they needed at the front of the room. That's the thing about how consequences work. They're not dramatic in the moment, they accumulate quietly. My parents didn't sit down one day and decide to betray me. They just kept making the easier choice over and over. And one of those easier choices was a seating chart, and one of them was a business registration I wasn't told about. And by the time I found myself at table 14 between strangers at my own sister's wedding, the accumulation was already complete. I was just the last one to see the total. I don't believe the universe arranged any of this. I believe people arrange things and then they live inside what they've arranged. My parents built something and put Nora at the center of it and assumed I would stay in orbit because I always had. And I might have. That's the part I sit with sometimes. I might have kept filing their taxes and driving Nora to cake tastings and sitting wherever I was put indefinitely if the number on that seating chart hadn't finally made the whole picture visible. What I did after required something I had to build deliberately. The willingness to act on what I knew was true, even when acting on it was going to hurt me too. That's not easy. I want to be honest about that. Sending that certified mail didn't feel powerful. It felt like standing at the edge of something and stepping off anyway because the ground behind me had already given way. Integrity without intelligence is just stubbornness. What made it possible to act correctly was that I understood exactly what I was looking at, the records, the patterns, the legal structure of what I was seeing. 6 years of doing this work gave me the language to name it accurately and the process to report it properly. I think about the version of me who hadn't built that skill, who would have felt the same wrongness in her gut but had no way to translate it into something real. Knowledge isn't separate from ethics, it's what gives ethics any traction. And the willingness to stay steady through the aftermath. That's not something you find, it's something you practice. Every ordinary day after I sent that letter, every farmer's market Saturday, every bowl of shakshuka I made at my own table, that was the practice, not performing peace. Actually building it, one quiet decision at a time. Nora hasn't called yet. I meant it when I said I'd pick up. I still mean it. I'm not waiting at table 14 anymore. But I haven't left the room either.